The Vraxian scout ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of an unremarkable solar system. Commander Zethlock studied the blue and green planet on his display with mild interest. Another primitive world, another easy conquest. The scanners showed nuclear weapons, chemical propulsion, and radio signals. These creatures were barely out of their caves. Zethlock sent his report back to the Hegemony Command. Within 3 days, the decision came back. Subjugate and harvest. Standard protocol for primitives. The Vraxian Hegemony had been doing this for 50,000 years. They had perfected the process. First, destroy their off-world assets. Second, demonstrate overwhelming power. Third, demand surrender. Fourth, occupy and exploit. Simple, efficient, profitable. The war fleet arrived 2 weeks later. 300 ships materialized in the darkness beyond the 9th planet. They were massive vessels, each one capable of glassing a continent. Their shields could withstand nuclear explosions. Their weapons could crack a planet's crust. The Vraxians had conquered 10,000 worlds with fleets smaller than this. The humans had built a small research station on their 4th planet, a red dusty world they called Mars. 87 scientists lived there, studying rocks and searching for microscopic life. They never saw the plasma bolt that vaporized their station. One moment they were eating dinner and laughing about a joke someone told. The next moment they were vapor and scattered atoms drifting in the thin Martian atmosphere. The moon base died next. 234 miners and engineers were extracting helium-3 and rare metals from the lunar surface. They had 3 minutes of warning, long enough to realize they were about to die, not long enough to do anything about it. The Vraxian destroyer that killed them barely slowed down. It was target practice, entertainment for bored soldiers. Earth's military networks exploded with activity. Satellites tracked the enormous alien fleet. Every nation's defense system went to maximum alert. The United Defense Coalition, a military alliance formed 20 years earlier for exactly this scenario, took command of all military forces. Presidents and prime ministers argued in emergency sessions. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to fight. All of them were terrified. The Vraxian message came in 47 different Earth languages, transmitted on every frequency humans used. The translation was perfect. The meaning was clear. Submit to hegemony rule or be exterminated. Surrender all weapons. Surrender all industry. Surrender all freedom. Become slaves or become extinct. You have 12 hours to respond. In the United Defense Coalition headquarters buried deep under the Rocky Mountains, General Sarah Chen read the message 3 times. She was 56 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment. Since she was a young lieutenant, she had known this day would come. They all had known. Ever since 1947, ever since Roswell, the coalition voted to fight. It was not unanimous. 5 nations wanted to surrender immediately. They argued that resistance was suicide. The alien technology was centuries ahead of Earth's. Fighting would only ensure humanity's extinction. Better to live as slaves than die as heroes. But 32 nations voted to resist. Democracy in action, even at the end of the world. General Chen gave the order. Every military spacecraft Earth had built over the last 50 years launched toward the alien fleet. 73 warships carrying 12,000 brave souls who knew they probably would not come home. They carried nuclear missiles, railguns that fired metal slugs at a fraction of light speed, and laser weapons that could cut through steel like butter. It was humanity's best technology, their finest weapons, their bravest warriors. The Battle of Low Earth Orbit lasted 14 minutes. The human ships fired everything they had. Nuclear warheads detonated against alien shields in silent flashes of light. Railgun projectiles struck at incredible speeds, creating brief sparks on enemy hulls. Laser beams traced bright lines across the darkness. For 14 minutes, humanity fought with everything they had. It was not enough. Not even close. The alien shields absorbed the nuclear blasts without flickering. The railgun rounds bounced off armor that humans could barely scratch. The lasers were swatted aside like annoying insects. And then the Vraxians fired back. 23 human ships died in the first volley. They did not explode dramatically like in the movies. They simply came apart. Metal twisted and melted. Hulls peeled open like fruit. Bodies were sucked into space. Some of the ships just vanished, hit by weapons that turned matter into energy. 12,000 people became 12,000 deaths in less time than it took to scream. The surviving human ships retreated. There was no shame in it. They had done their duty. They had shown humanity would fight. But they could not win. Not with conventional weapons. Not against technology this advanced. The remnants of Earth's fleet limped back to their planet, damaged and defeated. The Vraxians did not pursue. They did not need to. Commander Zethlock watched the primitive ships flee and felt satisfaction. The demonstration was complete. Now the humans understood their place in the universe. Now they would surrender. Now the occupation could begin. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Then Earth sent a message. A single transmission, tight beam, directly to the Vraxian flagship. General Chen's face appeared on Zethlock's screen. She looked tired. She looked sad. But she did not look defeated. She spoke clearly in the Vraxian primary language with perfect pronunciation. You have made a terrible mistake. You attacked without warning. You murdered our people without mercy. You assumed we were helpless. You were wrong. This is your only warning. Leave our solar system now. Leave and never return. If you stay, if you attack again, you will face consequences beyond your comprehension. We do not want this war. We tried to avoid it. But if you force us to fight, you will discover why that is a mistake. Leave now. Zethlock laughed. So did his officers. So did the commanders of the other 299 ships. The primitive was threatening them. The creature whose best weapons could not scratch their shields was making demands. It was absurd. It was insulting. It was hilarious. Zethlock sent his response. We are the Vraxian hegemony. We have ruled this galaxy for 50,000 years. We have conquered 10,000 worlds. We have destroyed civilizations that built wonders you cannot imagine. You are primitives playing with nuclear fire. Your warning is rejected. Your planet is ours. Prepare for occupation. He cut the transmission and gave the order. 12 landing ships, each carrying 5,000 soldiers, detached from the fleet. They would land in Earth's 12 largest cities. They would establish control. They would crush any resistance. Standard procedure. The hegemony had done this countless times before. The landing ships entered Earth's atmosphere over New York, Beijing, London, Mumbai, Tokyo, Moscow, Cairo, Mexico City, São Paulo, Lagos, Sydney, and Paris. Each one was the size of a city block. Each one carried enough firepower to level a city. Each one carried soldiers who had fought 100 campaigns on 100 worlds. They descended through the clouds like falling mountains, their engines burning bright enough to light up the night sky. In the Rocky Mountain facility, General Chen watched the landings on 12 different screens. She felt something twist in her stomach. Guilt, regret, sorrow for what was about to happen. She had tried to warn them. She had given them a chance to leave. They had chosen to stay. They had chosen to attack. They had chosen this. She looked at the people around her. Scientists, soldiers, engineers. People who had spent decades working on projects that officially did not exist. People who had built weapons that violated everything humanity thought they knew about physics. People who had learned from a teacher whose species had been destroyed by these same Vraxians thousands of years ago. Are we sure about this? Asked Dr. James Morrison. He was 73 years old, one of the lead scientists on the project. His hands were shaking. Once we start, we cannot stop. The whole galaxy will know what we have. General Chen nodded slowly. They murdered 321 of our people. They are landing occupation forces in our cities. They were warned. They chose this. Activate Protocol Omega. Dr. Morrison hesitated for just a moment. Then he entered the command codes. All around the world, in 47 hidden facilities that did not appear on any map, systems came online. Systems that had been built in secret over 80 years. Systems that had been tested in deep space where no one could see. Systems based on technology given to humanity by a dying alien who had warned them this day would come. Satellites that governments claimed were for weather monitoring and communications revealed their true purpose. Installations hidden under deserts and oceans and ice caps activated. Power sources that drew energy from dimensions beyond normal space began to hum. Weapons that should not exist, that could not exist according to known physics, came alive. In New York, the Vraxian soldiers were establishing a perimeter around their landing ship. They were efficient and professional. They had done this 1,000 times before. Then their supply ship in orbit above them simply vanished. Not destroyed, not blown up. It was just gone as if it had never existed. The soldiers looked up in confusion. In Beijing, the Vraxian commander was setting up a command post. He was receiving reports from his troops. Everything was proceeding smoothly. The primitives were staying in their homes, too frightened to resist. Then half his soldiers vanished. They did not die. They did not run away. They simply ceased to be there. One moment, a soldier was standing at his post. The next moment, there was empty air. All across Earth, in all 12 occupied cities, Vraxian forces began to disappear. Not killed, not captured, scattered across probability states, spread across parallel timelines, cut from the normal flow of space-time. They were alive, in a sense. But they were nowhere and everywhere at once, lost in the spaces between dimensions. The Vraxian fleet in orbit watched in horror as their landing forces simply dissolved. Commander Zethlock demanded an explanation from his scientists. They had no answers. This technology should not exist. The primitives should not have this. Nothing in their intelligence reports suggested this capability. Earth transmitted a new message. It appeared on every Vraxian ship simultaneously, on every screen, every display, every communication device. General Chen's face again, still tired, still sad. But now there was something else in her eyes, something cold and hard and absolutely serious. You were warned. You had your chance to leave. What happens next is on you. You chose this. Remember that. When your empire falls, when your worlds burn, when your people ask how this happened, tell them the truth. You were warned. You chose war. You attacked humanity, and you discovered why that was a mistake. Commander Zethlock felt something he had not felt in decades of military service. Fear. Real, cold, crawling fear. These primitives had done something impossible. They had technology that should not exist. They had weapons the hegemony did not understand. But he was Vraxian. He was a warrior. He would not show fear to primitives. He gave the order. 7 battlecruisers would bombard 3 human cities from orbit: New York, Beijing, and London. The cities where landing forces had disappeared. They would turn those cities to glass and ash. They would show these primitives the price of resistance. They would remind Earth who ruled this galaxy. The 7 battlecruisers moved into position. Their weapons charged. Energy built up in their main cannons, enough power to vaporize a city in seconds. The targeting systems locked on. The crews prepared to fire. And then they stopped. The ships did not lose power. The engines still ran. The life support still functioned. But time stopped. For the crews, for the ships, for everything inside those 7 vessels, time simply ceased to move forward. The crews were alive. They were conscious. They could think and feel and understand what had happened. But they could not move. They could not speak. They could not do anything except exist in an eternal frozen moment. They would stay that way for 10,000 years, trapped in a single instant, alive but not living, aware but unable to act, a warning to the rest of the fleet about what happened when you attacked Earth. General Chen watched the frozen ships on her display. She closed her eyes for a moment. "Update the message," she said quietly. "Tell them they have 72 hours to evacuate the solar system. Tell them this is their final warning." The message went out. The Vraxian fleet received it. Commander Zethlock stared at his frozen battlecruisers and felt the fear grow stronger. These were not primitives. These were something else. Something dangerous. Something that had been hiding its true nature. But Zethlock was Vraxian. The hegemony did not retreat. They did not surrender. They did not accept ultimatums from anyone. He would call for reinforcements. He would return with a fleet so large that even these weapons could not stop it. He would crush this world and everyone on it. He sent the call. The largest armada in Vraxian history would come to Earth, and then humanity would learn what it meant to defy the hegemony. In her command center, General Chen knew they would come. She had hoped they would leave. She had prayed they would be smart enough to run. But she had prepared for this. Humanity had prepared for 80 years. The real war was about to begin. The Rocky Mountain facility was 9 levels deep. The top level was ordinary military command center, the kind that appeared in news reports and government tours. The 2nd through 5th levels were where Earth's conventional defense systems were coordinated. But the 6th through 9th levels were different. They existed on no official records. No government admitted they were there, and access required genetic verification, retinal scan, and a security clearance that fewer than 200 people on Earth possessed. General Sarah Chen rode the elevator down to the 9th level. The walls here were not concrete and steel. They were lined with a strange metallic substance that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Material that had not been made on Earth. Material that had been reverse engineered from a crashed spacecraft 78 years ago in the desert of New Mexico. The doors opened to a massive chamber. Banks of computers lined the walls, but these were not ordinary machines. They incorporated technology that combined human engineering with alien science in ways that should not work, but somehow did. Scientists and engineers moved between stations, monitoring systems that drew power from quantum vacuum fluctuations and exotic matter that existed halfway between dimensions. At the center of the chamber was a viewing screen 50 feet wide. It showed the Vraxian fleet in orbit. 300 ships, each one a threat to all human civilization. Behind those ships, the stars. And somewhere beyond those stars, more enemies. Always more enemies. Dr. James Morrison approached General Chen. He looked older than his 73 years. The stress of the last few days had aged him. The knowledge of what they were about to do had aged him even more. He carried a tablet displaying information that would have seemed like science fiction to most people. To the people in this room, it was just another day's work. The preliminary results are better than expected, Morrison said. His voice was quiet, almost apologetic. The probability scattering worked perfectly on their landing forces. We dispersed approximately 60,000 soldiers across 16 different timeline branches. They are not dead. They are not injured. They are just not here anymore. They are somewhere else. Everywhere else. Nowhere we need to worry about. General Chen nodded. She felt no satisfaction, just a cold necessity. And the temporal stasis field on the battle cruisers? Stable. The crews inside are experiencing time at a rate of 1 second per 300 years. From their perspective, only a few moments have passed. They will remain in that state for 10,000 years unless we choose to release them, which we will not. Morrison paused. General, they are sending for reinforcements. Our deep space monitors detected the faster-than-light communications. A large fleet is coming. How large? 2,000 ships. Maybe more. The largest military fleet ever assembled in this sector of the galaxy. Morrison's hands were shaking again. General, we can defeat them. I am confident of that. But once we do, once we show the entire galaxy what we are capable of, everything changes. We cannot go back. Humanity will never be anonymous again. General Chen walked to the massive viewing screen. She stared at the Vraxian fleet, at the ships that had murdered her people and occupied her cities. She thought about the choice ahead. Fight and reveal humanity's true capabilities, or surrender and accept slavery. Not much of a choice, really. Tell me about him again, she said quietly. About Kethrol. I need to remember why we have this technology. I need to remember why we are doing this. Morrison joined her at the screen. He had told this story 100 times, but he never tired of it. It was the story that explained everything. The story that had shaped human history for nearly 8 decades, even though most people did not know it. July 1947. A spacecraft crashed in the desert near Roswell, New Mexico. It was not a weather balloon. It was a genuine alien vessel. Most of the crew died in the crash. But one survived, a scientist named Kethrol of the Kethari species. He was dying, his biology incompatible with Earth's atmosphere, but he lived long enough to communicate with us. He warned us about the Vraxians, General Chen said. Yes, the Kethari had been a spacefaring civilization for 12,000 years. They had built wonders, art and science and philosophy that we can barely understand. They were peaceful. They believed in exploration and knowledge. And then they met the Vraxian hegemony. Morrison pulled up an image on his tablet, a photograph from 1947, carefully preserved. It showed a small alien figure, barely 4 feet tall, with large eyes and delicate features. He was dying, his skin turning dark, his breathing labored, but his eyes were intelligent and kind, even in death. The Vraxians destroyed the Kethari homeworld. Billions dead, their civilization scattered. Kethrol was part of a group trying to preserve Kethari knowledge, trying to find other species and warn them. His ship was damaged in a fight with a Vraxian patrol. He crashed here, and in his last hours he gave us everything. Technology. More than that. Knowledge. Understanding of physics that our best scientists thought was impossible. He showed us how to manipulate space-time, how to access higher dimensions, how to build weapons that do not just destroy matter, but remove it from reality entirely. He gave us the tools to defend ourselves, General Chen turned away from the screen. And he warned us this day would come. He told us the Vraxians would find Earth eventually. He told us we needed to be ready. He also told us something else, Morrison said softly. He told us about the weapons his people discovered near the end. Weapons so terrible that the Cathari themselves were horrified. Weapons that violated not just the laws of physics but the laws of ethics and morality. Weapons that could unmake reality itself. The Cathari chose to bury that knowledge. They swore never to use it no matter the cost. But he gave it to us anyway. Yes, because he knew the Vraxians would come. He knew we would need every advantage. He told our scientists that humanity had something the Cathari lacked. We have a survival instinct that does not care about philosophy or ethics when our existence is threatened. He said we would do what the Cathari could not. We would use any weapon, no matter how terrible, if it meant survival. General Chen was quiet for a long moment. Was he right? Are we really that ruthless? Morrison met her eyes. We are about to find out. The reinforcement fleet will arrive in 6 days. When they do, we will have to decide. Use conventional weapons and probably lose. Or use the Cathari archive. The weapons that should never be used. The Cathari archive. It sat in a sealed vault on the lowest level of the facility, behind security measures that included quantum encryption and temporal locks. It was a data storage device of alien design, containing the complete scientific and military knowledge of a civilization that had lasted 12,000 years. Most of that knowledge humanity had barely begun to understand, but the weapon systems were clear enough. General Chen had seen demonstrations. In deep space, far from Earth, where no one could observe. She had watched as test devices tore holes in reality. She had seen matter simply cease to exist, not converted to energy but removed from the universe entirely. She had seen weapons that could reach backwards in time and erase things before they were even created. She had seen technology that made nuclear weapons look like children's fireworks. And she had been terrified. Not of the weapons themselves, but of what they said about humanity. That when pushed to the edge, when facing extinction, humans would use anything, would do anything, would become anything necessary to survive. A young officer approached, saluting crisply. General, the Vraxian commander is broadcasting on all frequencies. He is demanding we surrender unconditionally. He says the reinforcement fleet will glass our planet. He says resistance is futile. General Chen smiled without humor. Futile. He used that word. Someone has been watching our entertainment broadcasts. She turned to Morrison. How long until Protocol Omega is fully operational? All 47 installations are online. The satellite network is active. We can target anything in the solar system within milliseconds. The quantum anchors are stable. We are ready, General. Good, send a response to the Vraxian commander. Tell him we have received his message. Tell him we are not surrendering. Tell him we are preparing to show him exactly how not futile our resistance is. The message went out. On his flagship, Commander Zethlock received it with a mixture of anger and anticipation. These primitives were stubborn. They did not understand what was coming. The full might of the hegemony would crush them. He had called in favors. He had convinced the Council that this primitive world represented a threat that needed to be eliminated completely. 2,000 ships, elite forces, planet-killer weapons. Nothing would be left of Earth but radioactive dust. He watched his tactical display, watching the 7 frozen battlecruisers floating dead in space. Watching the empty spaces where his landing forces should be. These humans had tricks. Clever tricks. But tricks were not enough against overwhelming force. The hegemony had ruled for 50,000 years because they understood one simple truth. Quantity was a quality all its own. Enough ships, enough weapons, enough soldiers could overcome any defense. On Earth, preparations continued. The United Defense Coalition coordinated with governments worldwide. Cities were evacuated. Critical infrastructure was hardened. Weapons were distributed. Everyone knew what was coming. 2,000 alien ships against one planet. The largest space battle in human history. Possibly the last battle in human history. In homes and schools and churches, people prayed. They prayed to different gods in different languages, but they all asked for the same thing. Survival. Victory. Hope. In military bases, soldiers checked their weapons and wrote letters to families they might never see again. In laboratories, scientists ran final tests on systems they had built, but never fully tested. Everyone was afraid. Everyone was determined. Everyone was ready. General Chen did not sleep for 3 days. She coordinated defenses, reviewed plans, spoke to leaders around the world. She visited the vault where the Cathari archive was kept, standing before the alien device and wondering if Kethral had known what he was doing when he gave this to humanity. Had he understood what humans would become? Had he cared? Or had he simply wanted revenge on the species that destroyed his people, and humans were the tool he found? She would never know. Kethral had died in 1947 in a military hospital, surrounded by scientists and soldiers who could barely believe what they were seeing. His last words, translated by the basic communication device he had built, were simple. Survive. Remember us. Make them pay. Humanity had survived. They had remembered. And now they would make the Vraxians pay. On the 6th day, the reinforcement fleet arrived. 2,317 ships materialized at the edge of the solar system. They were massive, powerful, armed with weapons that could crack planets. They brought troop carriers holding millions of soldiers. They brought engineers to dismantle Earth's cities and harvest its resources. They brought slavers to process the human survivors. They brought everything needed to completely subjugate a world. They advanced in perfect formation, a wall of ships stretching across space, beautiful in a terrible way, like watching a tsunami approach, knowing it will destroy everything but unable to look away. They crossed the orbit of Neptune, then Uranus, then Saturn. No opposition, no resistance. Earth was silent, waiting. In the command center, General Chen watched them come. 2,000 ships on her display, each one marked with identification and weapons status. Around her, the staff was silent. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Everyone knew there was no going back. They are crossing Jupiter's orbit, an officer reported. General Chen took a deep breath. She thought about Kethral dying in a hospital bed, giving humanity his people's knowledge. She thought about the 321 humans murdered in the first attack. She thought about the choice ahead, and the weapons that should never be used, and the survival instinct that made humans human. Activate all systems, she said clearly. Full deployment. Show them what happens when they attack humanity. Show them what we learned. Show them why they should have listened to our warning. Around the world, in 47 hidden installations, the weapons that violated physics came fully online. In orbit, satellites that seemed innocent revealed their purpose. In the asteroid belt, stations that had been disguised as mining operations activated weapon systems of terrible power. And on Earth, in laboratories and bunkers and secret facilities, scientists activated the devices they had built from alien designs. The trap was ready. The Vraxians were in position, and humanity was about to show the galaxy exactly what humans became when pushed to the edge of extinction. Kethral had been right. Humans would do anything to survive, use any weapon, pay any price, become anything necessary. The Vraxians would learn this lesson the hard way, the only way they understood. The Vraxian armada crossed into Jupiter's orbit like a moving mountain range. 2,317 ships, each one a masterpiece of military engineering. Their shields shimmered with power. Their weapons hummed with readiness. Their crews were confident, experienced, victorious from 1,000 campaigns. They had crushed civilizations that had been building starships when Earth's ancestors were still living in caves. Commander Zethlock stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable Conquest. Around him, tactical displays showed the fleet in perfect formation. The pride of the hegemony, the terror of 100 worlds. Behind him, his officers worked efficiently, monitoring systems and coordinating with other ships. Everything was proceeding perfectly. All ships report ready status, his tactical officer announced. Shields at maximum. Weapons charged. Troops prepared for landing. We are ready to commence planetary assault on your command. Zethlock nodded. He studied the small blue planet ahead. So much trouble from such a primitive world. It was almost insulting. But after today, Earth would be a lesson to the galaxy. This is what happens when you resist the hegemony. This is what happens when you ignore warnings. This is what happens when primitives think they can fight back. Open a channel to the planet, he ordered. I want to speak to whoever is in command. I want them to watch what happens to their world. I want them to understand their mistake before they die. The communication system opened a channel. General Chen's face appeared on his screen. She looked tired. Good. She should be tired. She should be terrified. Instead, she looked sad. That annoyed Zethlock. She should be begging for mercy. I am Warlord Zethlock of the Vraxian hegemony, he said formally. You were given the chance to surrender. You refused. You were given the chance to submit peacefully. You chose violence. Now you will learn the price of defying the hegemony. Your planet will be destroyed. Your people will be enslaved. Your civilization will be erased from history. This is your final moment. Do you have any last words? General Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke, and her voice was calm and clear. Yes, I have last words. We warned you. 6 days ago, we told you to leave. We told you that staying would bring consequences beyond your comprehension. You did not listen. You brought 2,000 ships to destroy one planet. You brought overwhelming force because you are afraid. You are afraid because you saw what we can do, and you are right to be afraid. Zethlock laughed. His officers laughed. The communications channel was open to the entire fleet, and across 2,000 ships, Vraxian warriors laughed at the primitives' bravado. We are afraid? We have 2,000 ships. You have nothing. Your weapons cannot scratch our shields. Your technology is centuries behind ours. What can you possibly do that would make us afraid? You are about to find out, General Chen said softly. May your gods have mercy on you. Because we will not. The channel closed. Zethlock felt a moment of unease. There was something in her voice. Something certain. Something final. He pushed the feeling aside. Primitives always talked bravely before they died. It was their nature. It meant nothing. All ships begin assault pattern, he ordered. Target population centers. I want to see this planet burning. The fleet began to move into attack formation, and then the universe went insane. Jupiter was the largest planet in the solar system, a gas giant with more than twice the mass of all other planets combined. Its gravity well was enormous, bending space-time in ways that made faster-than-light travel near it dangerous. The Vraxians knew this. They had calculated safe distances. They had positioned their fleet carefully. They had done everything right. They had not expected humans to weaponize the planet itself. The satellites that humanity had positioned around Jupiter were not weapons in any conventional sense. They were markers, quantum anchors, devices that could manipulate the fundamental forces of space-time. In the Rocky Mountain facility, Dr. Morrison entered a command sequence that had been programmed 80 years ago by a dying alien scientist. Jupiter's gravity well inverted for 0.003 of a second. For that impossible instant, the planet's immense mass created a negative gravity field that pushed instead of pulled, and in that instant, space-time itself fractured. The effect was called a cascading probability collapse. Reality could not handle contradictory states. When Jupiter simultaneously pulled and pushed, when gravity both attracted and repelled, the universe did what it always does when faced with impossible situations. It averaged out. It compromised. It created a space-time fracture that tried to resolve the contradiction. 500 Vraxian ships were caught in the fracture. They did not explode. They did not burn. They simply compressed. In the space of a single heartbeat, 500 massive warships were crushed into quantum singularities. 500 ships carrying hundreds of thousands of warriors became 500 black holes the size of marbles. They existed for exactly 0.023 seconds before evaporating in bursts of Hawking radiation. The Vraxian fleet went from perfect formation to chaos in seconds. Ship commanders screamed orders. Navigation systems went crazy, trying to compensate for the sudden changes in local space-time. Shields flickered and died as power systems tried to handle gravitational forces that should not exist. Ships collided with each other, their careful formation destroyed. On the inevitable conquest, Commander Zethlock stared at his tactical display in horror. 500 ships gone, just gone. Red icons appearing on his screen where proud warships had been moments before. Damage reports flooding in from ships that had survived but been damaged by the gravitational chaos. And in the center of it all, a region of twisted space-time that sensors could barely read. What was that? He shouted. What did they do? His science officer was pale, his manipulator appendages shaking. They weaponized planetary gravity. They created a localized space-time inversion. Commander, that should be impossible. That requires technology that the hegemony does not possess. That requires understanding of physics that should not exist. How? Zethlock demanded. How do these primitives have this technology? I do not know, Commander. But we need to retreat. We need to report this to the Council. We need to destroy them. Zethlock roared. We still have over 1,800 ships. They cannot have many of these weapons. We overwhelm them with numbers. We spread out. We attack from multiple vectors. We show them that tricks and surprises are not enough. He was right in a way. The Jupiter weapon had been a one-time surprise. Humanity could not repeat that specific attack. But Commander Zethlock made a critical error. He assumed that was the only trick humanity had. He assumed that one surprise was all they had prepared. He assumed wrong. The Vraxian fleet regrouped. It took 15 minutes, but they managed it. 1,812 ships arranged in a new formation, spread across a wider area. They advanced more carefully now, watching for threats, scanning for anomalies. They were professional soldiers. They adapted. They learned. They moved forward. They crossed the orbit of Mars. Earth was ahead, blue and beautiful and helpless, or so it seemed. Commander Zethlock gave the order to prepare for planetary bombardment. Energy weapons charged, nuclear missiles armed. The fleet would turn Earth's surface into molten glass. They would sterilize the planet. They would eliminate this threat permanently. Then the second phase of humanity's defense activated, and the Vraxians discovered that Jupiter had not been humanity's only surprise. It had not even been humanity's best surprise. It had just been the first. From Earth, from Luna, from hidden installations throughout the asteroid belt, beams of exotic matter lanced out. They were not lasers. They were not plasma. They were something that should not exist according to Vraxian science, something that Kethral had shown humanity how to create, something that the Cathari had discovered and then tried to forget. The beams were streams of inverse matter, not antimatter, which would explode on contact with normal matter. Inverse matter was different. It was matter with negative binding energy, matter that did not want to hold together, and when inverse matter touched normal matter, it spread like a virus. The beam hit the Vraxian destroyer, crushing Victory amidships. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the molecular bonds in the ship's hull began to dissolve. The strong nuclear force that held atoms together began to unwind. The electromagnetic force that bound electrons to nuclei began to fail. The ship did not explode. It simply came apart at the atomic level. The crew of the crushing Victory experienced something no one should experience. They felt their bodies dissolving. They felt the atoms that made up their flesh separating, drifting apart, losing cohesion. They were alive for it, conscious for it. Their brains stayed functional just long enough to understand what was happening. Then they too dissolved into clouds of individual atoms drifting in space. 800 ships died in the first hour. Not all at once. The inverse matter beams could only target a few ships at a time. But they did not miss. They did not fail. Once a ship was hit, it was already dead. It just took a few seconds for the crew to realize it. A few seconds of horror as they came apart at the fundamental level of reality. Commander Zethlock watched his fleet die, ship after ship dissolving into atomic clouds. Warriors who had fought 100 battles dying in ways that should not be possible. His screen showed it all in perfect detail. Every ship that died, every crew that dissolved, every moment of the nightmare his fleet was experiencing. "Return fire!" he screamed. "Destroy those installations! Destroy the satellites! Destroy everything!" The remaining Vraxian ships opened fire. They had enormous firepower. They had weapons that could crack continents. They poured destruction at the human installations, at the satellites, at anything that looked like it might be dangerous. Nuclear explosions lit up space. Plasma bolts struck moon bases. Kinetic weapons hammered asteroid facilities. But the human installations were shielded. Not with conventional energy shields. With space-time distortion fields that made the installations exist slightly out of phase with normal reality. The Vraxian weapons hit nothing. They passed through space where the installations appeared to be, but struck empty vacuum. The installations themselves were safe, untouchable, continuing to fire their terrible weapons. Zethlock realized he was going to die. His entire fleet was going to die. He had brought 2,000 ships to crush one primitive planet, and he was losing. He was not just losing, he was being destroyed, humiliated, obliterated by an enemy he had thought was helpless. He accessed the emergency protocols. He had one final weapon, the hegemony's ultimate threat, a device that could collapse a star. It was a weapon of last resort, forbidden except in the most extreme circumstances. Using it would kill his fleet along with Earth. But at least the primitives would die too. At least the hegemony would have its revenge. "Activate the stellar destabilizer," he ordered. "Target Sol. If we are dying, we are taking them with us." The device activated. It was a massive machine, requiring the combined power output of 20 ships to operate. It sent exotic particles into the heart of a star, disrupting the fusion reactions that kept it burning. A star would normally take millions of years to die. The stellar destabilizer could kill one in hours. And when a star died violently, it took its entire solar system with it. On Earth, every alarm went off simultaneously. General Chen watched her displays in horror. The energy signatures were unmistakable. The Vraxians were going to kill the sun. They were going to take humanity with them into death. "How long?" she asked, though she already knew. 12 hours until the sun goes critical, Dr. Morrison said. His voice was hollow. Then nuclear fusion stops. The sun collapses. Then it explodes. Everything in the inner solar system will be vaporized. General Chen closed her eyes. She had hoped to avoid this. She had hoped that conventional weapons, even exotic conventional weapons, would be enough. But the Vraxians had forced her hand. They were willing to destroy themselves just to kill humanity. They had left her no choice. She opened her eyes. "Activate the Cathari archive. Full deployment. Authorization Chen Omega final. Confirm." Dr. Morrison's hands shook as he entered the codes. "Confirmed. General, once we do this, there is no going back. The entire galaxy will see. Everyone will know what we have, what we are." "I know," General Chen said quietly, "but we will be alive to deal with the consequences. Better the galaxy fears us than the galaxy mourns us. Activate the weapons." In the deepest vault behind security that had taken decades to develop, the Cathari archive opened. Data flowed into the weapon systems. Weapons that the Cathari had discovered and then buried. Weapons that violated not just physics but ethics and morality and every law of war. Weapons that should never be used. Weapons that humanity was about to use anyway. Because when pushed to the brink of extinction, when facing an enemy that would rather destroy a star than accept defeat, humanity revealed its true nature. The nature that Kethral had understood. The nature that had let humans survive when other species would have given up. The nature that made humans the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. The willingness to do absolutely anything to survive. The weapons activated, and the Vraxian fleet discovered that everything before this moment had been humanity being merciful. Now they would see what humanity looked like when mercy ended. Now they would see what true obliteration meant. The energy signatures from the Cathari archive weapons were visible across 10,000 light-years. In that moment, every advanced civilization in the sector detected them. Ships that were traveling through hyperspace felt space-time itself shudder. Planets with sensitive monitoring equipment recorded gravitational waves that should not exist. Scientists across 100 worlds stared at their instruments in disbelief and wondered what kind of catastrophe was happening in that distant solar system. They were about to find out, and they would never forget it. The devices that activated around the Vraxian fleet were small, barely the size of a human fist. There were hundreds of them, deployed by the satellite network, drifting in space like harmless debris. They looked insignificant. They were anything but. Each one contained technology that the Cathari had discovered at the height of their civilization. Technology they had tested once, been horrified by, and then locked away forever. Technology that rewrote the fundamental rules of reality. The devices began to hum. Not a sound, because sound cannot travel in space, but a vibration in space-time itself, a frequency that existed in dimensions beyond the normal 3 of space and 1 of time. Around each device, reality began to crack. Small fractures at first, like ice breaking under pressure. Then bigger. Then catastrophic. The Vraxian destroyer Eternal Domination was closest to one of the devices. The ship was trying to escape, its engines at full power, fleeing toward the edge of the solar system. The crew was terrified but disciplined, following emergency procedures, reporting their status. They had 17 seconds left to live. The device activated fully. Around it, a sphere of altered reality expanded at the speed of light. When it touched the Eternal Domination, the ship began to unravel. Not at the atomic level like the inverse matter weapons. At a deeper level. At the level of fundamental information. Reality at its deepest level is information. Quantum states, probability waves, the basic data that tells the universe what exists and what does not. The Cathari device did something that should be impossible. It accessed that information and edited it. It went into the code of reality and deleted specific entries. The Eternal Domination did not explode. It did not dissolve. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, a massive warship fleeing desperately. The next moment there was empty space. No debris, no atoms, no energy signature. Just nothing. The ship had been removed from reality like a word deleted from a document. But it was worse than simple deletion. The device was thorough. It did not just remove the ship. It removed the history of the ship, the quantum records that said the ship had ever existed, the causal chains that led to the ship's construction, the space-time coordinates that recorded where the ship had been. On the Vraxian homeworld, 900 light-years away, records spontaneously changed. The construction schedules for the Eternal Domination showed empty berths. The crew assignments listed vacant positions. The ship had never existed. Reality had been rewritten, and the edit propagated backwards through time and forwards through space, making the change consistent throughout the universe. The crew? They still existed in a sense, but they were nowhere. They had never been assigned to a ship that never existed. They had never left a homeworld on a mission that never happened. They were caught in a logical contradiction. They existed and did not exist simultaneously. They were trapped in quantum superposition, neither alive nor dead, neither here nor there. They were ghosts in the machine of reality. 700 Vraxian ships died this way in the first 10 minutes. 700 vessels removed from existence. 700 crews trapped in states that violated logic and causality. The Vraxian fleet went from over 1,000 ships to 300 in less time than it took to scream. On the inevitable conquest, Commander Zethlock watched his fleet vanish. Not destroyed, not killed, simply gone. His tactical display updated in real time, red icons disappearing as ships ceased to exist. His communications officers reported vessels that had never been built. His crew members looked around in confusion as they remembered serving with people they could not name, on ships they could not recall. "What is happening?" Zethlock whispered. His voice had lost all authority. He sounded like a child frightened by thunder. "What are they doing to us?" His science officer was curled in a corner, all of his manipulator appendages wrapped around himself. He was making a keening sound, a Vraxian expression of existential terror. "They are unmaking us. They are editing reality. They are removing us from existence. This should not be possible. This cannot be possible. The laws of physics do not allow this. The universe does not work this way." "But it is happening," Zethlock said. "It is real. We are dying. We are being erased." "Yes," the science officer whispered, "and when we are gone, no one will remember us. Our families will forget us. Our worlds will not mourn us, because we will never have existed. They are not killing us. They are uncreating us." Zethlock thought of his mate, his offspring, his clan. Would they remember him when he was erased? Or would the reality editing propagate to his homeworld, changing their memories, removing him from their lives as if he had never been born? He did not know. He could not know, and that uncertainty was more terrifying than death. But the Cathari weapons were not finished. Humanity had more than reality editing devices. The archive contained other horrors, other weapons that the Cathari had discovered and sworn never to use. Humanity had no such qualms. Humanity was fighting for survival, and in that fight nothing was forbidden. The second wave of weapons targeted the stellar destabilizer, the device that was killing Earth's sun, the Vraxian doomsday weapon that would destroy the entire solar system in hours. It was massive, protected by shields, surrounded by defending ships. It was the Vraxians' last hope of taking humanity with them into oblivion. The weapon that humanity used against it was based on temporal mechanics. Time travel was impossible according to both human and Vraxian science. The paradoxes made it unworkable. Change the past and you create contradictions. Kill your grandfather and you are never born. The universe did not allow such things. But the Cathari had discovered a loophole. You could not change the past. But you could swap things between past and future. You could take something from now and put it then, as long as you took something from then and put it now. The total causality remained balanced. The universe allowed it grudgingly as long as the exchange was equal. Humanity had built weapons based on this principle. They called them temporal inverters. They could take an object from the present and swap it with the same object from the past. The object did not change. Its history did not change. It just existed in a different time. The temporal inverter activated. The stellar destabilizer sitting in space near the sun suddenly swapped with itself from 12 hours ago. The device from the present went backwards in time. The device from 12 hours ago came forward. The result was catastrophic for the Vraxians. The stellar destabilizer from 12 hours ago was unactivated, offline, safe. It appeared in the present, replacing the active device. The exotic particles being pumped into the sun stopped immediately. The destabilization process halted. Earth's sun was saved, but the active stellar destabilizer was now 12 hours in the past. And 12 hours ago, the Vraxian fleet was still assembling at the edge of the solar system. The active device, pumping destabilizing particles at full power, appeared in the middle of the unprepared fleet. The ships there had no shields active, no protection. The exotic particles flooded their reactors. Their own power sources became destabilizers. 20 ships went critical simultaneously. They did not explode normally. They underwent catastrophic fusion reactions. 20 miniature novae erupted in the space of seconds. The Vraxian ships that were assembling 12 hours ago were vaporized. Hundreds of thousands of warriors died before they even knew there was a battle. In the present, the Vraxian fleet staggered under the temporal backlash. Half the crew members suddenly remembered dying 12 hours ago. They remembered being vaporized in nova explosions. But they were alive now. How? The temporal paradox tried to resolve itself. Some of the warriors went insane on the spot, their minds unable to handle the contradiction. Others simply collapsed, catatonic. The Vraxian fleet's cohesion shattered. Commander Zethlock felt the paradox hit his mind like a hammer. He remembered dying. He remembered burning in nuclear fire. He remembered his ship exploding. But he was alive. He was here. He was on the bridge of his flagship, which should have been destroyed hours ago, but somehow was not. His mind tried to hold both memories. It could not. Something broke inside his consciousness. "We have to run," he said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "We have to flee. We cannot win this. We cannot fight this. These are not primitives. These are demons. These are monsters. These are something that should not exist." His tactical officer, one of the few crew members still functional, agreed. "Commander, I recommend immediate retreat. We have less than 300 ships remaining. We are outnumbered by weapons we do not understand. We need to report this to the Hegemony Council. We need to warn them." "Yes," Zethlock said. "Warn them. Tell them about Earth. Tell them about humanity. Tell them what these creatures can do. Tell them to never ever come back here." The order went out. Retreat. Full speed. Maximum faster-than-light travel. Get out of the solar system. Get away from Earth. Get away from the humans and their impossible weapons. The surviving Vraxian ships turned and fled. Their proud formation broken, their confidence destroyed, their sanity shattered. But humanity was not finished. General Chen watched the Vraxians fleeing on her displays. She felt no satisfaction, no joy, just a cold, hard determination. These ships would go back to their empire. They would report what they had seen, and the hegemony would come again, with more ships, better prepared, better defended, unless humanity did something to make sure they never came back. "Target their command ships," she ordered. "Use the causality weapons. I want their leadership erased. I want their command structure destroyed. I want them to go home broken and leaderless and terrified." Dr. Morrison entered the commands. More Cathari weapons activated. These were different from the reality editing devices. These targeted specific individuals. They found the causal threads that defined a person's existence and severed them. Not the person's past, their future. The weapon reached forward in time and removed all possible futures where the target continued to exist. The target simply died. Not from damage, not from attack. They just stopped living. Their bodies shut down. Their brains ceased functioning. They died of causality failure, killed by weapons that attacked their timeline rather than their body. 23 Vraxian commanders, 78 senior officers, 346 ship captains, all dead in the same instant, killed by weapons that most civilizations did not believe were possible. The Vraxian fleet fled in complete chaos. 300 ships, most damaged, all terrified, running from a planet they had come to conquer. They jumped to faster-than-light travel without proper coordination. Some ships collided with each other in hyperspace. Others emerged in wrong locations, lost. A few simply disappeared, falling into dimensional rifts they could not escape. 223 ships made it out of the solar system. 223 survivors out of 2,317. Less than 10% of the proud armada that had come to crush humanity. They fled into deep space, broken and defeated, carrying a message that would echo across the galaxy. Do not attack Earth. Do not threaten humanity. Because the humans have weapons that should not exist. They have technology that violates the laws of reality. They are not primitives. They are something far more dangerous. They are survivors. And they will do anything, use anything, become anything to ensure their survival. In the Rocky Mountain facility, General Chen watched the last Vraxian ships disappear from her displays. Around her, the staff was silent. Some were crying. Some were laughing in relief. Most just stared at the screens in shock, unable to believe what they had survived. Stand down, Protocol Omega, General Chen said quietly. Deactivate all Cathari weapons. Return them to secure storage. This battle is over. Dr. Morrison obeyed, but his hands were still shaking. General, the entire galaxy saw that. The energy signatures were visible across thousands of light years. Every spacefaring civilization in the sector knows something happened here. They will come. They will investigate. They will learn what we have. I know, General Chen said. Let them come. Let them learn. Let them understand what happens when you attack humanity. Let them know that we tried peace. We offered warnings. We gave them chances to leave. They chose war. They chose obliteration, and they got exactly what they chose. She turned to face her staff. Exhausted humans who had just saved their species. Who had used weapons that should never be used. Who had become something terrible and necessary. We won, she said. We survived. But we paid a price. We showed the galaxy what we are, what we can become. We can never go back to being unknown. We can never hide again. From this day forward, humanity is known. We are feared, and we must live with that. In the silence that followed, everyone understood. They had won the battle, but the war for humanity's soul had just begun. The galaxy was watching, and the galaxy would never forget what it had witnessed. 30 days after the battle, Earth was still processing what had happened. The debris field in orbit had been cleared. The damaged facilities were being repaired. The cities that had been occupied were being rebuilt. Life continued as it always did, because humans were survivors. But everything had changed. Everyone knew it. The world had fought aliens and won. The world had used weapons that should not exist. The world had become something new. General Sarah Chen stood at a window in the Rocky Mountain facility, looking out at the mountains. Snow covered the peaks, beautiful and eternal. She had not slept more than a few hours at a time since the battle. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw ships being erased from reality. She saw Vraxian warriors dissolving at the atomic level. She saw the terrible weapons humanity had unleashed. General, Dr. Morrison approached quietly. They are here. The ambassadors. Over 200 ships in orbit. They are requesting permission to send diplomatic envoys to Earth. Chen turned from the window. 200 different species. Yes, some are offering alliance. Some are offering trade. Most are offering submission. They are all saying the same thing in different ways. Please do not attack us. Please do not do to us what you did to the Vraxians. Chen felt something bitter in her throat. This was not the future she had wanted. Not the future anyone had wanted. But it was the future they had. What is the status of the Vraxian hegemony? Morrison pulled up a holographic display. It showed a map of local space, hundreds of star systems. The systems that had been Vraxian territory were marked in red. But the red was fragmenting, breaking apart. Complete collapse. The news of the fleet's destruction reached their core worlds 3 days ago. Civil war started immediately. Subject species are rebelling. Their military is in chaos. The hegemony that ruled for 50,000 years is falling apart. How many survived? Chen asked quietly. How many of their ships made it home? 223. Out of over 2,000. Less than 10%. And most of those ships are damaged. Many of the crews are psychologically broken. They are reporting what they saw, but most Vraxians do not believe them. They think it is impossible. They think their warriors went insane. But their leadership believes. Yes, the Hegemony Council has issued an official decree. Earth is forbidden territory. No Vraxian ship is to enter the Sol system under any circumstances. They are treating us like a natural disaster. Something to be avoided, not fought. Chen nodded slowly. And the other species? What are they saying? Morrison changed the display. It showed interception of alien communications, messages between different civilizations. They are terrified. They saw the energy signatures. They detected the gravitational anomalies. They know something impossible happened here. Some are calling us the Undertakers, the species that buries those who threaten them. Others are calling us the reality weavers, the ones who can edit existence itself. Are any of them hostile? Are any of them planning to attack us? No, the opposite, actually. Several civilizations that were planning expansions into this region have stopped. Trade routes are being redirected around our solar system. We have effectively become the most isolated planet in the galaxy. Everyone wants to leave us alone. That was good, Chen supposed. It was what they had fought for. The right to be left alone. The right to live in peace. But it felt hollow. Humanity had become something feared rather than respected. Something avoided rather than befriended. They had won security at the cost of any possibility of peaceful integration into galactic civilization. Send a message to all the ambassadors, Chen said. Tell them we will meet with them. Tell them we will establish diplomatic relations. Tell them our position clearly. We do not seek to conquer. We do not seek to expand. We have one rule. Leave us alone and we will leave you alone. Threaten us or any other species unjustly, and you will discover what the Vraxians discovered. Any other species? Morrison asked. General, that is a strong commitment. Are we really prepared to defend other civilizations? Chen met his eyes. We have weapons that can unmake reality. We have technology that should not exist. With that power comes responsibility. We will not be tyrants. We will not be conquerors. But we will not stand by and watch another species suffer what the Cathari suffered. We will be protectors. It is the only way to justify having this power. Morrison was quiet for a moment. The Cathari weapons. General, what are we going to do with them? We cannot destroy them. The knowledge exists. We cannot unlearn what we know. I know, Chen said. I have been thinking about that. The Cathari archive will remain in secure storage. Access will be restricted to emergency protocols only. We will build safeguards, multiple levels of authorization, temporal locks that require unanimous approval from the entire United Defense Coalition. We will make it as hard as possible to use these weapons again. But if we need them, we can access them. Yes, because the galaxy is dangerous. The Vraxians are not the only threat out there. There are other empires, other dangers. We need the weapons as a deterrent, as insurance. But we will never use them unless absolutely necessary. Over the next weeks, the diplomatic meetings began. Ambassadors from 200 worlds came to Earth. They came in ships of every design imaginable. Some were elegant and artistic. Some were purely functional. Some were massive and intimidating. All of them approached the Sol system carefully, broadcasting peaceful intentions continuously, terrified of triggering humanity's defenses. The meetings were held in Geneva, in a newly constructed facility that could accommodate hundreds of different species with different environmental needs. Chen attended as many as she could. She shook hands with beings that had tentacles instead of fingers. She spoke with artificial intelligences that existed as pure energy. She negotiated with hive minds and individual diplomats and alien nobles who claimed to represent empires spanning thousands of worlds. The message was always the same. Humanity wanted peace. Humanity would trade. Humanity would share knowledge and culture. But humanity would defend itself and its friends without mercy. The Vraxian fleet had learned this lesson. Anyone else who needed to learn it would receive the same education. Some of the ambassadors asked to see the weapons. Chen refused. Some asked for technological exchanges. Chen agreed to share some technology, but not the Cathari archive. Never that. Some asked for military alliances. Chen offered non-aggression pacts instead. Humanity would not seek out wars, but humanity would end any wars brought to their doorstep. The galaxy began to organize around Earth as a central reference point. Trade routes were established. Communication networks were set up. Cultural exchanges began. Slowly, carefully, humanity started to integrate into galactic civilization, but always with the understanding that they were different, that they had capabilities others did not, that they were to be respected and feared in equal measure. The Vraxian hegemony continued to collapse. Subject species that had been enslaved for thousands of years gained their freedom. Worlds that had been exploited began to rebuild. The power vacuum left by the hegemony's fall created some conflicts, but neighboring civilizations worked to stabilize the region. And they all remembered Earth's warning. Justice and freedom were acceptable. Conquest and exploitation would bring humanity's attention. 6 months after the battle, Chen retired from active military service. She was 57 years old and felt like she was 80. The stress of command, the weight of the decisions she had made, the knowledge of what she had unleashed on the galaxy, it was too much. She needed rest. She needed peace. She needed to try to find some way to live with what she had done. Her replacement was a younger officer, Colonel Marcus Webb, 42 years old and brilliant. He understood the responsibility. He understood the burden. He swore the same oath Chen had sworn, to protect humanity, to use force only when necessary, to never forget the cost of the weapons they possessed. Chen moved to a small house in Colorado, in the mountains she had defended. She spent her days reading and hiking and trying to find some peace. But the nightmares continued. Every night she saw the Vraxian ships being erased. Every night she heard the screams of warriors dissolving at the atomic level. Every night she relived the moment she had given the order to activate the Kithari archive. A journalist came to interview her 3 months after her retirement. A young woman, earnest and intelligent, who wanted to write about the battle, about the hero who had saved humanity. Chen almost refused the interview. She did not feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had done terrible things for necessary reasons, but she agreed. Because the story needed to be told. The truth needed to be known. Future generations needed to understand what happened. What choices were made. What price was paid. You saved humanity, the journalist said. You are a hero to billions of people. How does that feel? Chen was quiet for a long time. I did what was necessary. I made the choices I had to make, but hero? So heroes are people who sacrifice themselves to save others. I sacrificed others. I used weapons that erased sentient beings from reality. I killed hundreds of thousands, possibly millions. I did it to save my species, yes, but that does not make me a hero. It makes me a survivor, and there is a difference. But they attacked us first. They murdered our people. They tried to enslave us, yes, they did. And we warned them. We gave them chances to leave. They chose to stay. They chose to fight. I do not regret defending Earth. I do not regret using the weapons we had. But I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the universe is cruel enough to force such choices. I regret that survival requires becoming something terrible. The journalist leaned forward. What do you want people to remember about the battle? About what happened? Chen thought carefully. I want them to remember that we tried peace. We did not want war. We offered warnings. We gave chances. The Vraxians chose obliteration. They chose to attack us even after seeing what we could do. I want people to remember that humanity is peaceful by choice, not by inability. We have the capacity for terrible violence. We have weapons that can unmake reality. But we choose not to use them unless forced. That choice is what makes us civilized, not the weapons. The restraint. And if someone attacks us again, Chen's eyes grew hard. Then they will learn the same lesson the Vraxians learned. We will defend ourselves. We will use any weapon necessary. We will do anything required to survive. Because that is what humans are. We are survivors. We are adaptable. We are relentless. And when pushed to the edge, when facing extinction, we will become anything necessary to ensure our species continues. The interview was published and became one of the most read articles in human history. Chen's words spread across Earth into human colonies in the solar system. They became a kind of creed, a reminder of who humanity was, what they had done, what they were capable of doing. On Luna, a monument was built at the site where the mining facility had been destroyed. It listed the names of all 234 miners and engineers who had died in the first attack. Below their names, in letters 3 feet tall, carved into lunar rock that would last millions of years, was a simple message in every language known to the galactic community. We warned them. They chose obliteration. Choose wisely. Ships from hundreds of worlds came to see the monument, to read the names, to understand the message. The monument became a pilgrimage site, a place where diplomats and warriors and ordinary beings came to reflect on the price of aggression, on the danger of assuming weakness. On the lesson the Vraxians had learned too late. Choose wisely. Because humanity had weapons that could unmake reality. Humanity had technology that violated the laws of physics. Humanity had the will to use anything necessary to survive. And humanity had proven they would use it. 10 years after the battle, peace had become normal. Earth traded with dozens of species. Human scientists collaborated with alien researchers. Human artists shared their work with galactic audiences. Human ships traveled to distant worlds, always peaceful, always respectful, always carrying the implicit message, we come in peace. But we are not helpless. Remember what happened to those who thought we were. The Vraxian hegemony was gone. In its place were dozens of smaller nations, free species rebuilding their civilizations. A new order based on cooperation rather than conquest. Some of those species sent ambassadors to Earth with a simple message. Thank you. Thank you for breaking the chains that held us. Thank you for showing that the hegemony could be defeated. Thank you for giving us freedom. Chen heard about those messages. They helped a little. The knowledge that something good had come from the terrible things she had done. The knowledge that species were free because humanity had fought. It did not erase her nightmares, but it made them bearable. She wrote a memoir in her final years. She died at 78 peacefully in her sleep. Her memoir was published posthumously. It became required reading at military academies across 100 worlds. Not just human academies. Alien species studied her words, trying to understand the psychology of a species that could be both peaceful and terrifying. The final paragraph of her memoir became famous. It was quoted in schools and parliaments and military briefings. It was carved on monuments and printed in history books. It became humanity's message to the galaxy. We are not conquerors. We are not warriors. We are survivors. We tried peace, and when peace failed, we did what was necessary. We became what we had to become. And we will do it again if forced. This is our final warning to the galaxy. Leave us in peace, and we will leave you in peace. Attack us, and you will face obliteration. We do not want this. We do not seek this. But we will not hesitate. Choose wisely. Because we warned the Vraxians, and they chose poorly, the galaxy witnessed what happened to them. The galaxy witnessed pure obliteration. Learn from their mistake. Choose peace. Choose wisdom. Choose to let humanity remain what we prefer to be. Peaceful explorers and friends. Because the alternative benefits no one. The alternative is something the galaxy should never see again. 47 sectors of space remained at peace for the next 100 years. The longest period of widespread peace in recorded galactic history. Not because civilizations became enlightened, not because differences were resolved, but because everyone remembered Earth. Everyone remembered the Vraxians. Everyone remembered what happened when you attacked humanity. Fear kept the peace. Not an ideal solution, but an effective one. And humanity continued their journey. Exploring, learning, growing, building colonies and making friends and contributing to galactic civilization. Always peaceful. Always open. Always welcoming, but always ready. Always watching. Always prepared to do what was necessary if threatened, because humans were survivors, and the galaxy had learned to respect that. The galaxy had witnessed what happened when humanity was pushed too far, and the galaxy chose to never push again. In the centuries that followed, humanity became known as the Silent Guardians. They did not patrol space. They did not enforce laws. They did not police other species. But when conflicts arose that threatened to become genocidal, when powerful species began to oppress weaker ones, when new conquerors tried to build new empires, humanity would send a single message: we are watching, choose peace. And the conflicts would stop. The oppression would end. The would-be conquerors would reconsider, because everyone knew what humanity could do. Everyone remembered the Vraxian fleet. Everyone understood that humanity's patience had limits. There were a few who tested those limits. A species called the Zarkonian Collective tried to enslave a primitive world on the galactic rim. They ignored humanity's warning. They assumed humans would not travel so far for strangers. They were wrong. A single human ship arrived at the Zarkonian homeworld. It did not fire weapons. It did not threaten. It simply broadcast a message. You were warned. You have 24 hours to withdraw from the primitive world and release all captives. If you do not comply, you will face consequences. The Zarkonians laughed. One ship against their empire? Impossible. They refused. 24 hours later, the Zarkonian military headquarters simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, removed from reality. Every record of its construction, every memory of the people who worked there, gone. The Zarkonians withdrew immediately. They freed the captives. They never attempted conquest again. Humanity had proven their warning was not empty. The galaxy learned that lesson well. But humanity also showed another side. When natural disasters struck alien worlds, human relief ships arrived with supplies and medical aid. When a plague threatened to wipe out a species, human scientists worked tirelessly to find a cure. When refugees needed shelter, human colonies opened their doors. Humanity was not just feared. They were also respected, trusted, even loved by some species. The balance between fear and friendship defined humanity's place in the galaxy. They were the species you did not want as an enemy, but desperately wanted as a friend. They were protectors and helpers. They were also the most dangerous beings in known space. In schools across 1,000 worlds, children learned about Earth, about the blue planet that had been attacked and had responded with weapons that should not exist, about General Sarah Chen and her terrible choices, about the monument on Luna with its simple warning. The lessons were always the same. Humanity is peaceful. Humanity is kind. But humanity is also absolutely lethal when threatened. Choose wisely. The Cathari archive remained in its vault on Earth, sealed behind security that grew more sophisticated with each passing decade. It was accessed only twice more in the centuries after the battle. Once when an extragalactic invasion threatened the entire sector, and humanity used the archive weapons to seal the dimensional rift the invaders came through. Once when a rogue artificial intelligence tried to convert all organic matter in a region of space into computational substrate, and humanity used reality editing weapons to contain it. Both times, the weapons were used precisely and carefully. Both times humanity proved they could wield terrible power without abusing it. Both times the galaxy breathed a sigh of relief that humans were on their side. Dr. James Morrison lived to be 97 years old. He spent his final decades teaching at the University of New Geneva, training the next generation of scientists who would maintain humanity's defenses. His last lecture, delivered to a packed auditorium, was recorded and preserved. "We have power that no other species possesses," he said, his voice still strong despite his age. "We have weapons that can unmake reality, technology that violates natural law, the capability to destroy civilizations with the press of a button. This power came to us through tragedy, through the kindness of a dying alien who wanted to save us from the fate his people suffered. We did not seek this power, but we have it. And the question that defines us is this: what do we do with it?" He paused, looking at the young faces before him. Human students and alien students sitting together, learning together, the future of galactic civilization. We choose restraint. We choose mercy. We choose peace whenever possible, but we also choose survival. We choose to protect not just ourselves but others who cannot protect themselves. We are not gods. We are not perfect. We are humans, flawed and frightened and trying our best. But we are also something the galaxy needs. We are the line that cannot be crossed. We are the warning that some things will not be tolerated. We are the proof that power does not have to corrupt. He smiled, a tired but genuine smile. General Chen once told me that we became what we had to become. I think about those words often, and I think she was only partly right. Yes, we became warriors when forced. We became terrible when necessary. But we also became something else. We became guardians, protectors, the species that stands between the strong and the weak. That is what we chose to become. And that choice, that daily choice to use our power responsibly, that is what makes us truly human. The lecture ended with thunderous applause. Morrison died peacefully 3 months later, surrounded by family and friends from a dozen species. His funeral was attended by thousands. Ships from across the galaxy sent condolences. He was buried on Earth, in the mountains he had loved, not far from where General Chen rested. 2 humans who had saved their species. 2 humans who had carried terrible burdens. 2 humans who had made choices that shaped the galaxy. They rested together in the Earth they had defended, their legacy living on in every human who remembered what they had done and why they had done it. The years became decades. The decades became centuries. Earth remained at the center of an expanding network of peaceful civilizations. Humanity spread to new worlds, but never as conquerors, always as explorers and friends. The Sol system remained the most defended location in the galaxy, but also one of the most welcoming. The contradiction was very human, and always on Luna the monument stood. The names of the fallen, the warning to all who would attack humanity. We warned them. They chose obliteration. Choose wisely. New ships arrived every day. New species read the message. New generations learned the lesson. And the galaxy remained at peace, held together not by love or unity, but by the simple understanding that some lines should never be crossed. Humanity had drawn that line. Humanity had defended that line. And humanity had proven they would defend it again if necessary. The galaxy had witnessed pure obliteration once. The galaxy chose to never witness it again. That was the gift the Vraxians had given the universe with their attack. The knowledge of what happened when you pushed humanity too far. The understanding that some species, when backed into a corner, would do anything to survive. And in that knowledge, paradoxically, was peace. Imperfect peace, peace born of fear rather than enlightenment. But peace nonetheless. Humanity had wanted to be explorers and friends. They had been forced to become warriors and guardians. They accepted both roles with equal seriousness. They never forgot what they were capable of. They never forgot the price of survival. And the galaxy never forgot either. The galaxy remembered the Vraxian fleet. The galaxy remembered the weapons that unmade reality. The galaxy remembered Earth's final warning. And the galaxy chose wisely. Generation after generation, species after species, the lesson was passed down. Leave humanity in peace. Respect their boundaries. Honor their warnings. Because they had proven beyond any doubt what they would do if those warnings were ignored. They had witnessed it once. That was enough. That was more than enough. The galaxy had learned its lesson. And humanity, reluctant warriors and gentle guardians, continued their journey through the stars. Always ready. Always watching. Always hoping they would never have to unleash their terrible power again. But always prepared to do so if necessary. Because that was what it meant to be human. To hope for peace while preparing for war. To extend friendship while maintaining defenses. To be both the kindest and the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Vraxians had discovered this truth the hard way. The galaxy had witnessed it. And the galaxy remembered. Choose wisely. Those two words echoed across the stars. A warning. A promise. A hope. Choose wisely and humanity would be your friend. Choose poorly and you would face obliteration. The galaxy had witnessed both options. The galaxy had seen what happened when the choice was made poorly. And so the galaxy, for the first time in its violent history, chose peace. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Because humanity had shown them the alternative. And the alternative was something no one wanted to see again. The earth turned. The stars shone. And humanity, survivors and guardians, continued their eternal watch. Ready. Always ready. But hoping, always hoping that they would never need to prove their power again. The warning had been given. The lesson had been taught. The galaxy had witnessed, and that, finally, was enough.